Hello and welcome. In this video, we'll show you how to sew a Hmoob length shirt. Watch part 2 for the shay. Fold your fabric over so that it's 2 layers. Then lay your pattern on top and pin it in place so nothing moves. Cut out your shirt front pieces. You should have 2. Next, you want to trace your darts. This is a yellow piece of tracing paper, and the green item here is a tracing wheel. Lay your tracing paper in between the pattern and the fabric and use the tracing wheel to trace over the darts. Make sure that you trace the darts onto both of the front pieces for the shirt and make sure that it's on opposite sides of each other. Repeat cutting out your front pieces onto lining and then also repeat tracing the darts onto your lining. Next, we're going to sew our darts. Here you want to fold the front pieces on the fold line, pin it in place, and then you want to sew along the sewing lines. Follow along on the sewing lines, and when you get to the bust area, this is where you want to start shifting the fabric around the curve. You want to use one hand to hold the flat folded side down and the other hand to move the fabric around. Next, you want to iron your darts on all 4 of your front pieces, both the lining and the shirt. You'll make sure the darts are facing the side seams. After you're all done with that, then you want to sew your lining onto your actual shirt fabric. Lay them on top of each other and then pin along the yellow line on your pattern. After sewing your pieces together, you want to flip your lining over and then iron everything nice and flat. Here's what your 2 completed front pieces should look like. Next, you want to take your store-bought Hmoob length dia and measure it out on your shirt and then cut off a section. Then you want to flip it over, fold over the raw edge on the pink side, and then pin it onto the front of your shirt right along the edge. You want to go over to your sewing machine and sew right along the edge of the pink piece so that it tacks down onto your black shirt fabric. To keep it secure, you want to repeat sewing on top of the dia. So you can pick any color that matches any of the stripes. Here I'm doing pink, and then you want to move on over to the edge and repeat. Your completed front shirt pieces should look like this. Next, we want to cut out our back shirt piece. What you want to do is fold your fabric over so that you have a fold on the fold line on your pattern, and cut out your shirt piece and repeat this with the lining. Next, you're going to repeat the process of tracing over your dart using wax paper and a tracing wheel again. Do this to both sides. To sew your dart, fold along the fold line, pin it in place, then take it over to a sew machine and sew along the sew line. You want to make sure you do this to both of the darts. Make sure you iron your darts so they're nice and flat. You want to iron the bulky fabric underneath towards your side seams. Repeat the process of cutting out the lining, tracing your darts and sewing them down, and then ironing it together. Then you can sew your lining and your shirt piece together. To do this, pin the neck hole opening together at the very top. Then you can take it over to a sewing machine and sew it together. Once you're all done sewing it together, what you want to do is snip the corners here with a scissor. If you don't do that, you won't be able to flip it over. After doing that, what you want to do is flip it over completely so that the lining is now on the other side. And you want to go ahead and iron the neck. Your completed back piece should look like this. You want to take your store-bought Mong Ling dia and again fold the pink part over so you get rid of the raw edge, and then pin it right along the neck opening. I'm folding the bottom up so that all the raw edges are gone once I sew it down. Repeat on the other side. Pin it down, and then you can take it over to a sewing machine and again sew right along the pink edge first, and then repeat one more line down the center and then one more line on the edge. This is what the completed back piece will look like. You want to make sure you cut away excess dia fabric. Next, you want to work on your sleeve. Here I'm selecting the 3/4, so I'll fold the pattern underneath so that it's shorter. And then I'm going to pin my pattern in place, and remember that you need to fold your fabric under so that along the fold line there's actually folded fabric. If you don't do that, you're going to get half a sleeve and not a whole sleeve. Cut out your sleeve. Mong Ling shirts use a cuff and it's usually blue, so you'll want to take your cuff that matches the length that you selected and also cut out some blue cuffs. Make sure you cut 2 of them for each sleeve. To sew your sleeve together, lay your lining face up, put your cuff in between, and then lay your black fabric right on top of those. Pin them together at the sleeve opening and then sew it down using a 1/2 inch seam. Next, you'll want to pin your cuff down, and in order to do that, you could take a ruler here and make sure you measure it out so you get a nice straight line. And then I'm going to take it over to an ironing board where you're actually going to iron right on top of that line there. If you're wondering what we used here, we used what's called Tailor chalk. If you Google it, you'll be able to find some that you can purchase online. Otherwise, you can also use any chalk pencils from Joann. Next, to sew it down, you want to sew right along the blue edge as close as you can so that it's less noticeable. After that, you'll want to flip it over completely so that the lining is on the inside now, and then iron that edge down so it's nice and flat. And then you can see on the good side, you'll have your blue cuff and sleeve. Now that you have all your pieces completed, front, back, and sleeves, we're going to put them together to make your shirt. To do that, you want to start with laying your back piece flat and then connecting your front pieces together to the back piece. Once you have the shoulders sewn together, you want to make sure you serge so that you get rid of any raw edges before moving on. This is what it'll look like once you connect the front and the back together at the shoulders. What you'll want to do next is cut away the excess fabric here, right where the armpits are. Then you'll want to connect the sleeve, and I always like to start at the center so that you get an even sleeve. So you want to lay down your front and your back flat and then add your sleeve on top and pin each section down. Get on your sewing machine and sew down your sleeve. Remove your pins as you go, and don't forget to serge after you're done sewing down the sleeve. Here is what it looks like after you've connected the sleeve onto it. After connecting on the sleeves, what you want to do is now close up the shirt. This is one of the final steps. And start at the armpit so that everything's even out. Put one pin there and then start pinning down the sides here. And then go ahead and pin your sleeve. So it's okay if you have extra fabric at the sleeve, that's better than not having enough, and we'll trim that off later. You want to go over to your sewing machine and sew down your side. You could start at the hem, you could start at the sleeve, as long as you go all the way down from one side to the other. So this is what it looks like, and we're going to cut off the excess fabric here before we go over and serge the raw edges here to close up the shirt. Here we're serging the sides down, and once you are done serging the sides, you can go ahead and serge the bottom of your shirt as well. And here's the bottom of the shirt. Here you have a completed shirt. Your edges are all serged now, and all you have to do now is flip it over and you have a completed Hmoob shirt to wear.